Hello and welcome to a brand new series I'm calling Arcade Classics. This series will focus on arcade games that are not made by SNK and therefore not on the Neo Geo. This includes everything from the early arcade games all the way to about where arcades really started to die in the early 2000s. So yeah, in this first installment, I'm going to be talking about one of the greatest arcade games of all time, released in July of 1981. This is Nintendo's classic Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong was the very first appearance of Mario. At this point, he was just called Jumpman. And he's off to rescue his girlfriend Pauline, who has been kidnapped by the great ape Donkey Kong. Alright, so let's throw in some virtual quarters and play some of this. Donkey Kong is one of the most significant arcade games of all time, right up there with Space Invaders, and Pac-Man. This game was everywhere in arcades back in the 80s, and its popularity spawned ports up the wazoo. This game was on basically anything that was a video game console. The Atari systems, all of them, the 2600, the 5200, the 7800, the Famicom, of course, got a port. It was on the ColecoVision. It was just absolutely everywhere. Donkey Kong is a game that has an interesting longevity towards it as well, being a common game for speedrunners and high score setters, people who want to basically play arcade games and do them as awesome as possible. Obviously, I'm not that kind of gamer. Growing up, I played Donkey Kong. I think the first version I played was on the Commodore 64. Wherever you played it, you were sure to get the girders level this first stage. But it's interesting to note that throughout the various ports of Donkey Kong, due to low memory constraints of various consoles, almost none of the ports contain all four of the stages of the original arcade version. For the most part, this is the level that you'd get with the ports. You'd get rescuing Pauline from the girder stage, and then you'd get this final stage. Now, the reason this occurs is because of memory constraints, but this is the US version, which has a bit of a weird order compared to what the original Japanese was. So we'll go get the hammer. Well, the hammer is another iconic thing that the Super Smash Bros. Has ripped off, and most modern-day gamers know it from that. But this is the game where the hammer was introduced. So Donkey Kong falls, hurts his head, and all is well. What's interesting to note about Donkey Kong is that this game kind of has a dark storyline. In the original storyline, Donkey Kong is actually Mario's pet, and like Mario has been mistreating Donkey Kong, and I don't know, Donkey Kong has revolted and then kidnapped Pauline, his girlfriend. And so now Mario has to rescue his girlfriend through animal abuse. Hooray, Nintendo! Oh, dang it. Due to the enormous popularity of Donkey Kong, this game spawned so many different ports. It also was on a board game, it was in movies, there was even a Saturday morning cartoon in the early 80s based upon this game. In more recent years, there's been a documentary film going on high-score arcade players called The King of Kong, which is in direct reference to people playing Donkey Kong until they reach the maximum score possible, and the game actually crashes because the game was never intended to be played that long. So, yeah, here's the high-score screen, which I didn't do very well, but hey, why not? So yeah, this has been Arcade Classics' first episode. I previously talked about arcade games before in a series I used to have called Arcade Game Showcase. And this series is going to be basically the replacement for that. An HD upgrade, you know, it's going to be talking about more games on a more consistent basis. But here you're not going to get the Neo Geo games. For that, it has its own series. That's Neo Geo Classics. So, once again, guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have arcade games that you want me to cover in the future, you know, feel free to leave those in the comment section down below. The more obscure, the better, because that's, you know, how I roll. So, once again, this is Donkey Kong, released in 1981. It's been released subsequently on all sorts of different platforms. Personally, one of my favorite versions of this is on the Game Boy, actually. Donkey Kong, which was released in 1994 for the Game Boy, which is often called Donkey Kong 94 for obvious reasons, is actually an enhanced version of this original Donkey Kong, where Mario has various moves that he would later have in Mario 64, such as the ability to triple jump. Donkey Kong 94 was also the killer app for the Super Game Boy, with having a special color palette that the Super Game Boy would assign to the game, and also would have Pauline yelling for help as an audio file that would only play on the Super Game Boy. But once the 4 stages of the original Donkey Kong are completed, that version of Donkey Kong actually will go on to spawn an entirely brand new game with an entirely new focus on stages. And eventually, those stages would be the basis for subsequent Donkey Kong games on Nintendo platforms, such as the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games. Well, anyway, that'll about do it for this video. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time.